AITA for refusing to let my mother move in with us after she lost her house. I never imagined it would come to this. If someone had told me 10 years ago that I'd be the one turning my own mother away from my front door, I would have laughed them off or maybe even cried from guilt at the idea. But life changes you. People change. Or maybe they simply reveal more of who they truly are over time. The story I'm about to tell isn't about a sudden fallout or a single explosive fight. It's about decades of small wounds, buried resentment, and a final shattering line I had to draw. Now I'm stuck questioning myself. Am I heartless or just protecting the family I built? I, 32F, grew up in what most people would call a chaotic household. My mother, Diane, 61F, was a single mom for most of my life. My dad left when I was 5, not because he didn't love me, but because, as I came to understand much later, he simply couldn't live with her anymore. Diane had a way of wearing people down. At first, it's subtle. She's charismatic, tells funny stories, gives the impression of being the cool mom. But underneath it all is this constant thread of manipulation, guilt-tripping, and playing the victim. She didn't raise me so much as orbit around me, forcing me to adapt to her mood swings, her bad decisions, her endless crises. I was the adult in our house by the time I turned 11. I made sure the bills were paid, with money from whatever job she had managed to keep that month, handled calls from creditors, cooked dinner most nights, and even got myself to school while she slept in after late nights out or binges of self-pity. Therapy would later call it parentification. I didn't know the term then. I just thought that's what daughters did. When I got into college on a scholarship, it felt like breaking out of a prison. I moved 3 states away, got a part-time job, and rarely looked back. I still called her, sent money now and then, especially when her unemployment would run out or she claimed to be on the verge of homelessness. She knew exactly what to say to reel me back in. "You'll just leave your own mother on the street," she'd sob, "after everything I sacrificed for you?" So I'd wire money, even when it meant I had to live off instant noodles for a week. I met Jordan, 34 million, my junior year, and he was the first person who truly saw me. Not the responsible, always smiling girl I pretended to be, but the exhausted, scared, wounded woman underneath. He came from a relatively stable family and couldn't fathom some of the things I told him about my childhood. But he never judged me. He supported me through therapy, encouraged me to set boundaries, and helped me see that I was more than just a caretaker for someone else's brokenness. When we got married, I didn't invite my mother. It was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made. I knew she'd make the day about herself. She'd cry loudly, give inappropriate toasts, or worse, start a scene with Jordan's family. I wrote her a letter instead, explaining that I loved her but needed space. That letter triggered a storm of voicemails and emails. At first, they were begging. Then they turned angry, accusing, venomous. "You ungrateful little brat," one message said. "I should have had an abortion when I had the chance." I blocked her after that. For 2 years, there was silence. Complete and blessed silence. In that time, Jordan and I bought a house in the suburbs, a modest 3-bedroom place with a little yard. I focused on my career, started gardening, and even let myself believe I might be capable of motherhood one day, something I had always dreaded for fear I would become like her. Then, last winter, out of nowhere, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. It was Diane. Her voice sounded worn, ragged. She said she was sorry, that she had nowhere else to go, that she had been evicted and was living in her car. She begged me to call her back. "Please," she whispered. "I'm your mother." I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was a monster. Jordan held me and said we could talk about it in the morning. When we did, he was calm and honest, the way he always is. "If you really believe she's changed," he said, "I'll support you. But you need to think about whether she's capable of coexisting peacefully with us. What happens if she moves in and starts all of that again? What happens if we have kids?" I called my therapist. We talked for nearly an hour. She reminded me that compassion doesn't require self-sacrifice, that it's okay to help someone without letting them invade your life again. That afternoon, I called Diane back. She cried when I answered, told me how hard life had been, how COVID ruined everything, how she tried to find work but no one would hire someone her age, how she hadn't eaten properly in days. I told her I was sorry. I told her I couldn't let her move in. She went quiet. "Are you serious?" she said finally. "You live in a whole damn house with a spare room, and you're going to leave your own mother on the street?" "I can pay for a motel," I said gently. "For a few weeks. We can talk about helping you find housing." "I don't need a motel," she snapped. "I need a home. I gave you life, And you repay me like this? There it was. The spiral. The rage. The gaslighting. The exact behavior I had worked years to escape. I'm sorry, I said. I really am. But I can't let you move in. She hung up. What followed were texts. Dozens of them. Some desperate, some vile. She called me a cold-blooded bitch, a traitor. She said if she froze to death on the street, it would be on my conscience. She even tried to contact Jordan directly through Facebook, claiming I was abusing her. He blocked her instantly. A week later, my cousin Rachel called me. She had heard from Diane, who spun a version of events where I was rich, selfish, and punishing her for being poor. Rachel didn't exactly defend her, but she did ask if maybe I could just let her stay a few months. I felt that old guilt rise in my throat like acid. I asked Rachel a simple question. Would you let her live with you? There was silence. Well, I have roommates, she said. It wouldn't really be practical. Exactly. The fallout didn't end there. Over the next month, I became the villain in several branches of the family. A few distant aunts who had barely said a word to me since high school messaged me out of nowhere to shame me for abandoning my mother. One even said, "You'll understand when you're a mother yourself." That one stung. But what no one seemed to understand, or wanted to, was that Diane had already been given more chances than most people would dream of. She had alienated nearly everyone who ever tried to help her. Old friends, co-workers, even her own siblings. Every time it ended the same way, people trying to set boundaries, and Diane bulldozing over them until they had no choice but to walk away. And I had tried more than most daughters probably would. I sent her money through college, paid her rent twice when I was in my early 20s and barely scraping by myself, offered to help her find therapy, job programs, housing applications. But Diane didn't want help. She wanted control. She didn't want to get better. She wanted someone to carry her. No questions asked. And when I finally refused, she acted like I had stabbed her in the back. The worst part wasn't the messages or the guilt trips. It was the voice in my own head, the one that sounded like a younger version of me, the one that still believed I owed her something for simply being born. I found myself crying in the kitchen one night while chopping vegetables, overwhelmed by the pressure of it all. Jordan came over, wiped my tears, and said, "You are not the bad guy here." But I didn't feel like the good guy either. Eventually, I stopped answering messages about her altogether. She moved in with a friend, apparently. Someone she knew from a support group, I think. I don't know the details. I sent her one final text. "I wish you well, but I am choosing peace for myself and my family. Please don't contact me again unless it's to genuinely reconnect, not demand." Weeks passed, then months. I got pregnant. We were overjoyed, cautious, hopeful. I wanted to tell Diane. I wanted her to know that she was going to be a grandmother. Despite everything, a small part of me still pictured her there, awkwardly holding my baby, making dumb jokes, promising to teach them how to bake the way she used to try with me. But then I remembered the chaos she brings, the destruction she leaves behind. I remembered the nights I stayed awake worrying about her debts, her breakdowns, her manipulations. I remembered Jordan's quiet strength as he held me through all of it, and reminded me that we had our own lives to protect now. The birth was beautiful. Traumatic, but beautiful. A small, pink, screaming miracle. My son. My new beginning. I didn't tell Diane. Our son, Noah, is 6 months old now. He's bright-eyed, loud, and constantly fascinated by the world. Every little sound delights him. He giggles in his sleep, reaches for our faces when we hold him, and cries indignantly if we dare to leave the room. He is the axis of our world, the first thing that made me truly understand unconditional love. And yet, there are moments. Quiet moments. Late at night when the house is still and I'm feeding him by moonlight, or when I catch a glimpse of my own eyes reflected in his and think, she has those same eyes. That's when the doubt creeps in. Am I depriving him of a grandmother? Of a wider family? Of stories about where he came from? Then I remember the weight of my childhood, the constant need to prove my worth, the tightrope I had to walk between appeasing her and surviving her. I remember hiding in my room while she screamed at a boyfriend on the phone, then calmly blamed me afterward for why he left. I remember the food stamps, the eviction notices, the time she left me at a gas station because I told her she was driving drunk. I remember how she looked me in the eye and said I was lucky she didn't throw me out when I was 12. What would I be teaching my son if I let someone like that into his life? That abuse can be forgiven if it's wrapped in a family title? That manipulation is acceptable if it comes from someone who gave birth to you? That blood is always thicker than boundaries? Number I made a promise to myself, and now to him, that the cycle stops here. Jordan agrees. He supports my decision fully, though he also reminds me gently that I'm allowed to grieve. That cutting someone off, even someone toxic, doesn't mean you don't feel the loss. And I do feel it. It hits me in the oddest places. A commercial about family reunions. A mother and daughter laughing in the grocery store. The word mom scribbled in crayon on a preschool sign outside a nearby church. 1,000 tiny reminders of what I don't have and maybe never did. Sometimes, when the guilt gnaws too deep, I write letters. Letters I'll never send. To Diane. To myself as a little girl. To Noah when he's old enough to ask why he only has one set of grandparents. I keep them in a box under the bed, right beside a folder labeled Emergency Contact Info. Because just in case, if she ever changes, truly changes, I want to leave the door cracked open. But not wide open. Not again. I'm not cruel. I didn't abandon my mother in a blizzard. I didn't leave her with no options. I just chose not to let her destroy the peace I worked my entire life to find.